Maybe that old lady in the village can help. She probably knows a lot of weird stuff. Maybe that old lady in the village can help. She probably knows a lot of weird stuff.
Maybe that old lady in the village can help. She probably knows a lot of weird stuff.
Oh yes, Jay. Yes, she does. And you can't even begin to comprehend what she knows. Why? Because Sorla has lived for millennia longer than even her peers probably know. And today, I'm going to expose her true role in Ninjago's lore. Think I'm crazy? That's only the tip of this mysterious ice fisher's iceberg, and let me tell you, if you think she's just an ice fisher, then you are in for quite the shock. Hello, I'm Trainer KN. It was a long while ago when I first stumbled upon a small trove of crackpot Ninjago theories. These kinds of theories are meant to be unrealistic, unlikely, just so far-fetched that nobody could truly believe in the remnants of plausibility. Nobody except for me, that is, for hidden amongst the rubble of faulty reasoning was a gem in disguise, an interwebs user who pitched the theory that Sorla is Wu and Garmadon's long-lost mother. Yes, you heard me right. Sorla, the Never-Realm Ice Fisher Elder, is the key to an age-old debate amongst the Ninjago fandom. You think me crazy for investigating this poorly poised theory, but by the end of this video, you'll buy into it yourself. The original theory seemed somewhat plausible to me, but it wasn't enough. It didn't present much behind a basic claim, lacking all real evidence behind surface-level coincidences. Let's start with the basis for the theory. We know that the first Spinjitzu master visited the Neverrealm prior to arriving in Ninjago, for he later warned Wu to never visit it. Sorla possesses great knowledge of elemental powers, and so it's fair to pitch the idea that she learned these advanced teachings of the elements from the first Spinjitzu master, given that we don't see any elemental masters native to the Neverrealm. But there is just so much room for other possibilities. It isn't enough. The first Spinjitzu master's teachings could have been passed through generations to Sorla. There's no guarantee they met, and the obvious elephant in the room is that she's simply not as old as him to have met or had Wu and Garmadon with him. But interestingly enough, I think I can solve this issue. Starting with the common misconception that the Neverrealm's time moves at a faster rate. That's just bogus. Lloyd suggested this frustratingly misleading possibility due to Zane's prolonged reign as the Ice Emperor, despite being sent to the realm mere days beforehand. While it may seem as though there's merit behind this claim, especially when considering Akita's comments that the Ice Emperor had ruled for decades, the truth is that Zane hadn't been sent to the Neverrealm just a couple of days before and somehow ruled decades in that short period. When he was blasted by Asphira to the Neverrealm, he had also been sent back in time about 60 years. I'm not making this up, it is a definitive probability. Tommy Andreasen directly stated this in the live chat of an art stream by fan artist Joshua Deck, implying that this is the understanding of the writing team. Connecting this back to Sorla, this only proves that time wasn't moving forward at an accelerated rate. It does nothing but establish that time flow is equal between the realms, meaning that there still isn't an explanation for how she could have survived millennia after her alleged interactions with the first Spinjitzu master. I considered the possibility that she had Oni or dragon blood, but quickly realized that this would greatly offset the balance and remain incompatible with how the balance itself is symbolized in the genetic makeup of the first Spinjitzu master's bloodline. Then it hit me. Why would only dragons and Oni age differently? The franchise has presented us with dozens of different species and races, many of them humanoid. Could there be a race that appears human but ages differently? What I found only confirmed my suspicions. In the last of the Formlands, Akita tells the story of how the Formlings were attacked by Boreal, preceded by an ominous visit from Vex. Now, we know Vex was sent into exile and he remained in anger at the Formlings, vowing revenge for years, wandering the wilderness before finding Zane. Wait a second. before finding Zane. No, it can't be. Zane was sent back in time about 60 years and was brainwashed by Vex within mere days, taking control of the realm. We know Vex was vengeful. He was upset, he felt wronged, he felt betrayed and alienated by his own kind, the Formlings. It only makes sense that after usurping control, his first priority would be to attack them. So why the panic, you ask? I tell you again, 60 years. If Zane came to power as the Ice Emperor within a few days of arriving in the Neverrealm's past, and Vex's first priority was to ambush the Formlings, he would have done that first, at the beginning of the 60 years. Do you see? Can you now understand that there's rhythm to my madness? 60 years have passed since Akita went out on her own. This is not the face of a 70-plus-year-old woman. Akita is implied to be roughly the same developmental age as Lloyd, especially given their connection. She chronologically first appears at roughly the same age as Lloyd's brat debut, and seems to have only aged a few years physically by the time the 60-year-old clock runs out. So what does this mean? I'll tell you. Formlings age slower. I'll refrain from putting exact specifics on it, the math doesn't add up, but when has it ever in this franchise? My best guess is that Formling age doesn't follow a flat rate when compared to the human aging rate, but instead exponentially slows down the older you get. This would mean that Formling babies would physically age at a much faster rate than Formling elders. Again, this is speculation, but it's necessary to explain how Sorla hasn't yet kicked the bucket. That brings us full circle back to the Ice Fisher Elder herself. We don't know anything about Sorla's genetic makeup. Again, I rule out the possibility that she has Oni or dragon blood, and the only confirmed humanoid species in the Neverrealm that ages at a decelerated rate would be, as I just proved, the Formlings, even if we don't understand the exact mathematical relationship of said aging. So why, you ask, does Sorla have to be a Formling? I don't invent it for the sole purpose of proving my theory. I speculate it because it is highly probable. There are just too many hints to ignore. Start with the fact that the Formlings are both a tribal and spiritual people. To find their animal forms, they follow mystic signs from the universe calling to them. It's how Akita is shown to receive her wolf form. By comparison, the tribal ice fishers, save Sorla, are too simple. Sorla is another master of the mystic arts. Not only does she possess unheard of knowledge of elemental powers in the realm, but she sees visions in the hearthfire and addresses them as spirits. This is Spirit Smoke. And who else calls upon Spirit Smoke? Her supposed son, Wu. Wu learned the majority of his mystical knowledge from that of his father, the first Spinjitzu master. Coincidence? I think not. There is just no way that the only two characters who use Spirit Smoke and possess advanced knowledge of elemental power are unrelated to each other. Either the first Spinjitzu master taught both Wu and Sorla these mystic arts during his life, or Sorla taught him about the smoke from her people, the Formlings, and he passed that knowledge on to Wu. Speaking of elemental knowledge, Sorla seems even more educated on it than Wu himself. Think about it, isn't it true? Wu did not know how to restore the power of Kai, nor did he teach Nia how to manipulate ice. Sorla has even more knowledge than Wu on the elements of creation. She understands their intricacies, despite those powers being exclusive to Ninjagan elemental masters, save the first Spinjitzu master. Save the first Spinjitzu master. It's just all too perfect. And that isn't all. Sorla is also proficient in the brewing of traveler's tea, even understanding potency requirements. It's almost as if she's made it before. What's more, she understands the old tongue.
In the old tongue, it is called Mala Ojira.
And wouldn't you know who happens to be the only other character who knows the old tongue?
It is the old tongue.
the language in which my oldest scrolls are written.
His oldest scrolls. Wu's oldest scrolls are from that of his father. If Sorla can understand them, then she must have extensive experience with the language of the first Spinjitzu master as well. In my research, and I know this isn't anything definitive, but it is certainly worth noting, when looking at some of the LEGO assets that represent Wu, I stumbled upon a trivia bullet listing pieces that represented baby Wu, including his bundled up appearance, which never made it into a Ninjago set. That piece, COL339, is exclusive to 71011 Minifigure Series 15 Tribal Woman. What was truly odd is the description for the figure found on LEGO.com. Reading from an excerpt. She tells these stories to her baby, who she hopes will grow up to love them as much as she does, and perhaps even add to them and tell them to the next generation in turn. Oddly familiar. Wu grew up as a cryptic sage, passing his knowledge and stories to the next generation. Even if Wu doesn't recall his mother, perhaps there's a link between their shared narrative style. Even looking at the visual cues, the tribal woman has a similar style to that of the formlings, with clothing better accompanied for summer. She wears feathers in her hair and more primitive decoration. But surprisingly, that all checks out. The formlings are more advanced than they would have been in her time way back when. Before Zane, seasons were normal, and summer would have been expected. What's more, the only bird-based formling is Fritz, who is the newest generation formling based on his age. He wouldn't have experienced the long winter. The birds would have been present in these warmer temperatures. This is nothing but proof that the tribal woman's appearance is compatible with what a formling would have looked like millennia prior, when it was summer. If we use this to presume Sorla had darker hair, this also explains why Garmadon's hair would be a darker brown instead of a blonde like Wu, or presumably his father, given that this is a near requirement for Lloyd to have the blonde hair recessive gene. Several months back when working on this theory, I asked Doc Wyatt about why the first Spinjitzu master told Wu to never visit the Neverrealm. It didn't seem to have any inherent danger before the Ice Emperor, who would have arrived millennia after the FSM's time. It seemed odd to me that Doc actually answered this question, among others, especially considering that he is a Dragon's Rising writer, and doesn't typically feel compelled to answer questions about earlier seasons, especially when they aren't relevant to the new series. Because of an unnamed past event. How odd! What conditions exist for such a notable event? No danger, accessible travelers' tea leaves, no mortal conflict could really hinder the FSM. So what doesn't he want Wu to discover? It has to be something emotional. I think it has to be Sorla. Wu's an interesting case. He doesn't seem to recall his mother or whether he even had one, but that seems like something he or Garmadon would have asked their father at some point. If their father had outright created them, there's nothing for him to hide. But since the brothers don't know of their own origin, it implies that the FSM did, in fact, have something to hide. He felt that the boys weren't ready to know. In the case that I'm correct and Sorla is their mother, perhaps he even felt guilty. Maybe he dragged the Oni chasing after him to the Neverrealm, or perhaps he and Sorla had a bad split and he took the brothers with him. Regardless, it only makes sense. At this point, I could even buy into the idea that, being indecisive, the show writers simply made Sorla's character loosely compatible with the idea of a mother, in case they wanted to fall back and commit to the idea. I mean, think about it. Everything lines up. Nothing contradicts. Even looking through Wu's own in-universe notes, you can see how he compiled notes from his youth and reflections in his later life into a journal, with a lot of notes being related to his father. Wait! Stop. Zoom in. I cannot believe it. It is just too good to be true. It's too ironic. Wait, let me... On page 50 of the Book of Spinjitzu is Wu's family tree, with a silhouette of his supposed mother. And lo and behold, the hair pieces match perfectly. this is the final nail in the coffin. The theory was speculative and hopeful, but turned out to be entirely plausible, and dare I say it, probable. Let's recap. The first Spinjitzu master, either before his reconstruction of Ninjago or even slightly thereafter, arrives in the Neverrealm, meeting a Formling girl, Sorla. He teaches her about Traveler's Tea, how to read the old tongue, and teaches her the intricacies of the elements of creation. She teaches him in return about spirit smoke. They're happy for a time, bond, and birth 2 sons. They raise them together before an unknown event forces the first Spinjitzu master to leave with the boys, abandoning Sorla to his great guilt. As the brothers grow up, never knowing of their own origin, Sorla, meanwhile, learns how to move on by herself over the course of millennia, and at some point transitions to join and act as an elder to the Ice Fishers. I'm Trainer KN, and this has been Ninjago Theory.